You're listening to Crud Talk, a ministry of 50 Shades of Grace. Everybody's got a story. I'm guessing like me, you've been hurt before. But what if I told you there was more to this life than being stuck in the hurt and sin of your past? Hey, we all have crud, but it's how we deal with it that makes all the difference.
Today's episode is brought to you by a generous sponsor just like you. We thank you for your generous gift, which allows us to share hope and continue to help people deal with the crud in their lives. Because dealing with your crud makes all the difference. So thank you. Hey everybody, welcome to Crud Talk. I'm Sonia Bruner. How are you doing? So I've been walking with several people through some truly difficult things in their lives. And I think if you have friends, or even if you are in a position of leadership where you do counsel a lot of people or have helped people, teachers, doctors, pastors, we give biblical counsel to people when we are Christians, and all of us can do that, right? But in my ministry, because of what I've been through, I have a certain skill set, and I do help people deal with the crud in their lives, right? And so I've been walking with people through some really difficult times. It's an honor to be able to be trusted with the secrets and the hurt. It's really hard for sure, but to be in the darkness, sitting with others, man, that makes all the difference. I was talking to someone recently, and we were talking about how after something traumatic happens, so many people freak out and won't allow those that are hurting to just be or feel how they feel in that moment. What they want is the happy-go-lucky person that they have known before the trauma. They don't want the discomfort. They don't want the darkness. They want you to be back to normal and happy, especially those of us that take care of everyone else. People get used to that and actually resent you if you set boundaries and start saying, no, I can't do that. I need to take care of me today. What we came up with was there are very few people who will sit in the darkness with someone else. I can testify to this personally. And if you've been through anything difficult, abuse, loss, betrayal, maybe a scary medical diagnosis, anything devastating, you know how hard it is to find someone who will sit in the dark with you. My prayer is that I would continue to be the one that sits in the darkness with someone else. And the only way I can do that is by the grace of Jesus Christ. Y'all, I doubt my ability. I'm nothing special, but the Lord has given me a voice and ears to hear when others are hurting. I trust Jesus. Even though I've had to go through horrendous events in my life, I trust him. I was recently talking to a young woman who's been severely abused, and she asked me, aren't you angry with God that he could have stopped what was being done to you at any time, but he didn't? And then she went on to say, so that means that he wanted you to go through all of the abuse. How can you trust him when he didn't save you from it and he could have? Y'all, it hit me. This is why Jesus wanted me to talk about this specifically tonight, because so many of us are hurt and disappointed at the deepest level, but are too angry or too intimidated to say it to his face and tell the truth. What we do instead is we hold back. We push Jesus away. We run. We won't allow ourselves to be hurt worse, so we refuse to trust him or anyone else. Instead of dealing with the crud, we blame God for what has happened, and we depend on ourselves, which, let's just say, for all of us that have walked this road and ran or got mad at God, we know that is not going to go well. Can I get an amen? I asked the kids in church one day, what is something hard you deal with? And a little boy raised his hand and said, get this, you guys, believing in God sometimes. I thought that was the bravest, most honest answer I've ever heard from a human, period. So let's talk about this crud, because that's what we do here. How do I trust the one who allowed it? My answer to that is this. I could never possibly have the first clue what it means to be God. The decisions that he must make and the love he has for people, even those that choose to not follow him, yet he loves them anyway. What it would take to keep loving us when we sin against him. Even though we know what he did for us, the sacrifices and the pain that saving us cost him, the betrayal and disappointment he must feel all the time. I can't imagine it. Can you? Talk about pain. Those that should know better don't do better by Jesus. He gets that. So this idea that he purposely wanted a little girl named Sonia to be beaten and forced to do evil, wicked, unthinkable acts, I'm sorry, I am not able to agree with that line of thinking. Why? I know Jesus. I see what he's given me, what he gave up for me. I see how he loves me, how he's changed my heart and my mind. I hear his voice when he's speaking to my heart, and I feel his spirit when he wants me to remember that he is with me. So many times I've tried to be my own boss. I've tried to do things my way, and yet he never leaves me. He doesn't give me what I truly deserve, which is hell. That's what we truly deserve. He could easily give up on me, but he never does. Think about how Jesus feels when we make choices that go against what we know is right and wrong, and all because we just feel like it. In those moments, we aren't thinking about the cross and what it took for him to love us so deeply, so irrevocably, so completely. We only care about what we want, what we feel, what we think we need, and how to get it now. If I ever wonder what it must be like for God, all I have to do is look at my kids. All my hopes, my dreams are in their faces, right? And at times, they make choices that hurt me. I feel angry, disappointed, unappreciated, unloved. And then I think about how I feel when my kids are hurt or in pain. Parents, is that not the worst? I can't stand it. I feel like I'm out of control, and the pain in my heart is excruciating. I want to take all the pain away, and I would gladly switch places just so that they wouldn't have the moment of pain in their lives, not one. It's then that I think about how gut-wrenching it must have been for Jesus to watch me go through that kind of torture. As I was threatened and then forced to do so many sexual evil things, the way that I was beaten, the way that my body was invaded over and over, the fear, the way that I made myself numb so that I could get through it, the marks that were on my little body, the bruises, the words that were spit into my face about how worthless and dirty I was, all the while believing that no one loved me and that this was all there would be for me. So it brings me to our original question. How do I trust the one who allowed it to happen? Sometimes I think it would have been merciful if God had allowed me to die during that time. But that's only because I didn't know the future. I didn't see the big picture. The truth is, had I died during that time, I wouldn't have had a relationship with Jesus Christ. My sin would not have been forgiven, and I would be in hell without that forgiveness. This one fact remains the dearest to my heart. He saved me from hell. There are many that will argue that a kind and loving God would never allow a child to go to hell. God is kind. He is good. He is sovereign. I trust him to always be fair and just because he kept me alive and then revealed himself to me by way of the gospel. I believe with my whole heart that a relationship with me is what Jesus desired. He created me. He wanted me. He chose me. Think about that for a minute. I'm the girl that nobody wanted. No one loved me. I was treated like an animal, and then I was thrown away like trash. But Jesus, in his goodness and mercy, said, I love you, Sonia. I want you. I choose you. I will take you. If you've been through horribly difficult events in your life and you're still here, could it be that Jesus wants a relationship with you? Could it be that he has a bigger plan for you than you could ever understand? Is it possible that by allowing the bad things to happen, it created opportunities that would never have been there had the hard stuff ceased to exist? I could make a list of all the things that by allowing that horrific abuse in my life changed the path that I would walk forever. Not only would I never have heard the truth that there truly was someone who loved me unconditionally, Jesus, but I wouldn't have ever met Rick Bruner. That would take hundreds upon thousands of words to tell you what Rick has meant to me. My boys, the family that God gave me through Rick, the people I've met, the friendships that have impacted my life, miracle upon miracle. And let's talk about 50 Shades of Grace, this ministry. Every story, every comment, every word from people who are sharing their pain and their own journey with me, how God has used my abuse over and over to get his story to them so that they can make a choice of whether or not they will make Jesus the Lord of their life. It's my story that God uses to relate to others who've been hurt too. It's the story that opens up the doors to their hearts and minds and then breaks down the walls that they've built up to protect themselves. How could I ever become bitter and tell God that he was wrong? Or that he never should have allowed me to go through that when person after person has found Jesus simply because I had a story and I shared it? Really? I'm going to question that? I'm sorry, I can't do that. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that this is too easy. This is just a sugary, flippant phrase that makes me sound really spiritual. Let me just say, gag me, please. I'm human. I get hacked off just like you do. I feel sorry for myself and I feel disappointment and betrayal and all the things that you do. I've walked with Jesus for a long time. I've dealt with my crud and I continue to work hard on that as it comes up in my life. I don't bury it. I don't stuff it or pretend that it's not there. I tell God the truth. Even the negative, hard stuff, like when I get angry with them. I'm not saying that all of your emotions just suddenly go away because Jesus is in your life. What I am saying is that Jesus has taught me many things about himself in his word and relationships with other people. I truly am a new creature. You might not be where I am. That's okay. But I also need to tell you that you cannot continue on the way that you've been living because now you know different. So you must do something different. I don't understand everything that has happened. I don't. Let me say this. There are pieces of my story that still hurt me, and I don't understand why it was allowed. But here's the thing. If we can figure the God of the universe out in our measly, puny human brains, then how great of a God is he? It's okay to tell God the truth. I encourage you to do that. That's how you will begin to deal with your crud. If you're angry, you need to tell him that. It's okay for you to tell him. He's a big God and he has big shoulders. He can take it. He's not your genie in a bottle that gives you your wishes or follows your commands. He is God and he has all the power and all the say, period. If you need outside help, get it. There are wonderful therapists and counselors that can help you sort out your crud. There's life coaches. I'm one. I help people all the time come up with a plan to get to where they want to be. Listen, I choose to believe God's word. I believe that Jesus loves me. I believe that he died on the cross for my sin, all of it. I believe that he has a plan and a purpose for my life. And I'm trying to live how he wants me to live and to embrace the story and calling he has on my life. I don't wallow in my crud. I deal with it and move forward. When I'm struggling, I bring that to God. When I sin, I go to him and I ask him to forgive me and to help me not to do that again. I don't blame God or anyone else for my crud. My mother and the man and the men that hurt me are to be held accountable for what they did. Can I tell you some of the sweetest memories I have are the conversations where I cry out like the guttural, icky cry? How could you let them do that to me? In that raw place that I know I can trust him with the deepest pain. I know that he will sit in the darkness with me. That's everything. That's everything. So what about you? Do you trust Jesus or are you mad at him? Do you blame him for what happened to you or what's happening now? You guys, I can't make you trust God. No one can do that. God could do it, but he won't. He won't force you. He gives you a choice. How can I know that I can trust him, the one who allowed it? All I can tell you is that Jesus has proven himself to me to be faithful, true, merciful, kind, good, loving, forgiving, constant, gracious, wise, just, generous, and my dearest friend. My whole life, he's created opportunities for me to rise above what was done to me and to share my story with those that need to hear it because they need to know that they're not alone and that someone does love them. He never said that it was okay for what they did to me. He was not okay with what happened to me. Not ever. Sin did this to me. Satan did this to me, and he is to blame. Just like what happened to Jesus. Every day he shows himself to me. He speaks to my heart. He reveals himself in his word. I trust him. My soul trusts him. My mind trusts him. My entire being knows that he is the truth. Did he know about it? Yes. Did he allow it? All the stuff that happened to me? Yes. Do I understand why he did that? No. No, not always. But I do get glimpses of it when I look at my life and my choices, my blessings, and the people that I coach, the people who give their lives to Jesus, the men and women who write to me and tell me that God has done what he's done in their lives through a conference or a post or even this podcast. As I'm sitting in the darkness with someone and they're at their most vulnerable, the broken place, and they say, I feel heard, Sonia. I feel like you get it and you don't judge me. You give me courage to deal with my crud. Or I love this one the most. I know that Jesus is real to you, girl, and I believe that there is hope. That is all because of Jesus. He does that. He lets me be on the team, but he does that in them and in me. And that is how I know I can trust the one who allowed it. Have you been hurt? Are you disappointed or mad? Go back to what you know is your truth with Jesus. But before you can do that, you have to know Jesus. Do you have a relationship, a personal relationship with Jesus Christ? If you do, how's that going? If you're struggling, go back and look at what he did for you, what he saved you from, what you've learned. Your relationships, good and bad, your failures, your victories, and how Jesus has been there every step of the way. Maybe you feel like you needed him to do something, but he didn't do it the way you thought he should. Tell him the truth, all of it. Let Jesus show himself to you through prayer and his word. If you ask him to help you, guess what? He will. It might not look the way you think it should, but you are not God. We don't get to know everything. He doesn't have to tell us. I know that when I've asked for help or encouragement or love, oh, you guys, he's given it to me. If you have crud and you haven't dealt with it and you find yourself struggling and not able to move on, there is no way to get through it but by going through it. How you deal with your crud or not deal with it makes all the difference. And that's what's been the game changer for me from day one. Jesus allowed me to deal with it, to learn how to deal with it in a healthy way. And because he did, I had the courage to deal with the pain and all the stuff that happened to me. I didn't stay stuck inside. It didn't stay stuck in me. And because of that, those people, those events didn't have any power over me any longer. When I work with people and they're struggling, 100% of the time, it's because they haven't dealt with some kind of crud in their lives. Talk about job security, right? You might not know that you even have crud. Or you might think, I'm fine. I'm doing this and this and this, and I'm fine. But are you? I hear this a lot. I don't need to deal with the crud. It happened, but what can I do about it? And my favorite one is, I just ignore it. I'm good. But their choices are so messed up. Their relationships are suffering. Their employment is inconsistent. And they're miserable. And they keep people at a distance. They never can get to a healthy relationship. They keep filling up their lives with more and more stuff. They go for whatever makes them feel good in the moment, and it never satisfies. There's no way to get through it without going through it. All the darkness, all the unforgiveness, the anger, the hurt. If you refuse to deal with it, that's what will come out when hard things happen. We live in a world full of sin, and hard things are going to continue to happen. If you don't deal with your crud, that's how you're going to respond. Out of the hurt instead of freedom. It's your choice. Will you trust Jesus with your heart or not? I trust Jesus with everything I am. I can't give you every single reason other than what I've already told you, but I do with every fiber of my being. and he has proven himself to me. That is how I know I can trust the one who allowed it. I'm Sonia Bruner. This is Crud Talk. See you next time.